Hi, I'm Richard Karn, and you may have seen me on TV talking about the world's #1 expandable garden hose. Well, the brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with Pocket Pivot is here, and it's a total game changer. Old-fashioned hoses get kinks and creases at the spigot, but the Copperhead's Pocket Pivot swivels 360 degrees for full water flow and freedom to water with ease all around your home. When you're all done, this rust-proof anti-burst hose shrinks back down to pocket size for effortless handling and tidy storage. Plus, your super light and ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is backed with a 10-year warranty. What could be better than that? I'll tell you what, an exciting radio-exclusive offer just for you. For a limited time, you can get a free Pocket Pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text WATER to 64,000. That's WATER to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. WATER to 64,000.
By texting 64,000, you agree to receive recurring automated marketing messages from Pocket Hose. Message and data rates may apply. No purchase required. Terms apply. Available at pockethose.com/terms.
Stop right there. Yeah, you. If you like all things entertainment, current events, or Hollywood, then look no further. Creator to Creators, hosted by director Meosha of Horror Noir, interviews filmmakers and creatives from around the world. Join in on the fun, guest celebrities, and informative information to have as a creator. Hit subscribe and stay connected to Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creator to Creators today. Today we have a special guest.
Oh, me. Me, I'm the special guest. Oh, wow. Yes, I'm your special guest today. My name is Chris Alexander. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming on. How are you first and foremost? How you doing?
I'm good. You want to know? I'm good, but do you want to know like the whole story? Or do you want just the traditional? I'm fine. I'm good. Everything's
sure.
great.
Give me the whole story.
No, I'm good. I'm good. But I have one. I have a bunch of kids. And one of them, he's my oldest. He's 15.
Oh wow.
And I live in Toronto, but not in Toronto. I live just outside.
Gotcha.
So he's made the pilgrimage for the first time in his life on the train with his friends to go down to the big city. And I am literally getting text updates every like 20 minutes and living in terror that something horrible is going to happen to this kid because he's been known to allow horrible things. Anyway, so I'm fine. Everything is fine. But in a moment's notice, it could be not fine. So, but I guess that's the microcosm of life. Anyways, we have to live in the moment, right? So
exactly.
There you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh man, that's hilarious. Well, I hope everything's great. I'm sure it's
Thank
great.
you. Yes.
Good to see you. So I like to always start from the beginning, like, how you become who you are today. So, I mean, everyone has a beginning.
Sure.
What was your childhood like? What was that like growing up? And I mean, how did you find yourself in moving into the direction of the love of film?
Yeah, well, I mean, my childhood was I was lucky in the sense I had very liberal parents. They did not, we didn't come from any kind of, say no rules. Of course there were rules, but I was raised in the 70s, right? I was born in the mid 70s and I had a very tight, small family. And they were all cinema lovers. My mother was a huge movie lover. My grandmother was a huge movie lover. My father was insatiable, and especially for science fiction, horror, weird stuff. So I was exposed to the Twilight Zone and to all these comic books and all. And then I had an uncle. I still have an uncle, God bless him, who was mentally handicapped, I guess you would call him. But he was almost savant-like in the sense that he collected comic books and he made model kits, and he loved monsters, absolutely loved monsters. And he was brilliant in many respects, just a little bit delayed, but he had this massive collection of creepy stuff.
Wow.
And it was meticulously displayed in his room, like a museum. So just my earliest memories are crawling up my grandmother's stairs just to kind of peek in his room and see Frankenstein. And if you know the Aurora model kits, like the girls in dungeon and cages and Vampirella and all this crazy stuff, and then leaping through his comic books going, oh my God, Spider-Man at the golden age of the good Marvel stuff, which was borderline horror, Ghost Rider, all that stuff. So, I mean, I was being saturated by this stuff. And again, it was not taboo. I was allowed to explore it. I discovered the band Kiss when I was 3.
Right.
And Gene Simmons was my first vampire. I was taken to a wax museum in Niagara Falls, Canada called the House of Frankenstein when I was 3.
Oh,
and
wow.
I was terrified, but I was like obsessed with the idea as to why I was terrified. So I love the aesthetics of this stuff. I love the movies themselves. I love the whole magic of these other worlds that were open and surrounding me that I had access to. And then I had to dig to find, because this was before VHS, before all that stuff, you know, it was appointment television, and there was no internet. So you had to really look. And so it was my life and my adventure and my calling. And I literally never looked back. I stuck with it. I was the guy on the bus with this briefcase full of Fangoria magazines and comic books, and people would swarm me to see what's going on with Chris. And I just managed to, through a long story, very short, managed to make a pretty okay little living doing what I love and sticking to my guns. You know, I never wavered. I never gave up. Even when, you know, you're a creator yourself, you know, when things get dark, and they do. It's magically, if you stay in the game, there's always an upswing, right? There's always some moment where you go, that's why I stayed.
Right.
So I've had so far, you know, a pretty good life, just following my muse.
I love that. I think that is exactly, when I looked at your bio and I saw like you've done so much. I mean, magazine editor, film critic, director, musician, like so many things. And I think that's the key, right? Is not limiting yourself to just one thing. Like, so. Well,
you're like, I mean, you know that's the key, because you're proof positive of that. And you've probably, like me, run up against people that have said, you got to pick a lane. You got to do one thing. Yes. And you're like, all the liberal, you know, all art is just some form of expressing how you feel. And if I'm interested in all the appendages of art, so why shouldn't I explore them all? Yes. I don't need to necessarily be a master of all, but I think I'm pretty good at successfully applying myself and communicating in a myriad medias. So why wouldn't I? You know, we're here for this brief period of time. Why not just, you know, squeeze all we can out of the sponge and leave as much of a trail of breadcrumbs behind us before we go, you know?
I love that. That's exactly how I feel. And I think, and so it's funny. So you, as you get older, so you have a love for the horror genre. And what did you know? Like, okay, I want to make films. I want to do that.
I did, but you see, I went to film school.
Okay.
I knew I wanted to make films, but remember, this is at a time before there was the influx of video technology. I mean, when I was a little boy, when I was like 12, every Saturday, we'd pool our money together to rent a hulking VHS video camera from the convenience store down the street. It was like, you know, massive right here. And it had like wires, and you had a shoulder strap with a VCR attached to you.
Wow.
And we'd have like 12 hours to shoot the movie before we had to bring it back. So we'd run around shooting these crazy movies, and you couldn't edit, right? So all you could do is like, oh, that scene didn't work. Pause it, look through the viewfinder, rewind it a few frames, pause it again. So every time, you know, if you know VCRs, every time you pause when it backs up a bit, you keep losing footage until you get this like incomprehensible mess. And then music, we just have a tape deck with us playing music in the background or the scenes. And it was the greatest times of our lives. And I was the guy, again, putting this together, and everyone wanted to be in one of our movies, and no one was doing that. They didn't have access to this stuff. But my point being is, making movies was a far off dream, especially where I lived in Toronto, Canada. I was, you know, I didn't have any movie dads around who were in the business or anything. And the technology wasn't there. When I went to film school, it was all 16 millimeter.
Right.
So to pay for 16 and then to develop 16 with no audio, I mean, it was a nightmare. I made some great experimental films. We're not going to do that.
Right.
So it wasn't until later that video technology came in, where you could really kind of economically dive in there and really start to follow that career. But so what I did is really simple. I said, well, again, the liberal arts, cinema is many different. It's writing, it's music, it's performance, it's photography. And so I dovetailed into music because I was a pretty good musician. And then I created live action movies for the stage with lights and props and actors. And then I dovetailed that into a career in writing because I was a pretty good writer. I can write how I speak. So I was able to have that pretty clear voice. And then I was successful at that. And I was a publicist at Warner Brothers Films. Eventually I moved into that. And so I was hanging out with all these movie stars now suddenly, and critics and writers and thinkers, you know, great thinkers. And all these worlds kind of came together, and then taking over Fangoria magazine and really making a name for myself as a guy who knew everything there was to know about this stuff, about horror films.
Yeah. And
then the movies kind of came as I knew they would, the road less traveled. They came after that, after I lived a little bit, had some children, my ego was, you know, wasn't there. I didn't have that kind of thing. Like, if I'm not a star by time 21, I'm going to kill myself. I didn't have that anymore.
No.
I was used to failure.
Yeah.
So, and I was also had enough backup things. I said, well, I can make a movie if it doesn't fly. I can back into that. I'm good. and then I'll keep going back and forth. And eventually, you know, things hit, they don't, you move around. So you always have many nests feathered that you can fall back into, and you're fine with all of them. You know, your plan A is plan A, but plan B and C and D are pretty good too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where it happened. And I don't, even though I am a filmmaker, and that's primarily how I do stuff late these days, but it's not the only thing I do.
I love that.
So it's hard for me to say what the hell I do, really, because I do kind of everything.
I love that. Mm-hmm. Do you, as a creator, do you feel like you have a responsibility, quote unquote, to, I don't know, have a message or in any of your things that you want someone, like say your viewers, to audience, to like leave with? Is there at this point of your career, is there something you want to say in your films?
There's always something I want to say. You know, Roger Corman is one of my heroes. I just wrote a book on him, actually comes out later this year.
Nice.
And he's always of the, you know, the father of independent cinema, not just horror, independent cinema, full stop. But he's of the mind that you create the entertainment, and the entertainment always, if it's going to last, if it's going to matter, always should have subtext. Subtext doesn't have to, you know, you might even not even recognize the subtext, but it should be there, always bubbling under the surface. But it should never supersede the entertainment value. Now, I'm not necessarily sure I believe that, but I do believe that all art has to have some kind of meaning, even if it's only cinematic meaning, even if it's only the meaning of the creator. So with me, I mean, everything I do, and that goes for even the lowliest of film essay, has to have, I'm at that point now where I don't call myself a film critic anymore, because I don't want to rag on anyone's movies. I just don't. There's so much I love. Why waste time denigrating and picking apart things I don't? Someone's going to love that. It doesn't matter if I like it or don't. So I focus exclusively on communicating my passion about things I like. In all my films, they are absolutely about something. Sometimes I'm not even aware of what they're about, but they are true to what I'm trying to say in that moment about the world I live in, even if it's just an artistic choice.
Right.
They're there because I'm trying to convey something. And again, maybe sometimes I'm not even aware of what I'm trying to convey. And then in retrospect, I look and I think, okay, that's where I was at that point in my life.
Right.
I can see that this movie's actually about the destruction of my marriage, for instance, but I wasn't aware of it at the time because I was in it. And because I make very small, micro budget, independently produced and distributed films, I have a lot more freedom to make very personal pieces of work, which most of my films have been. So yeah, I do feel a responsibility to myself to be honest with who I am, not to the world. You know, take me or leave me. You don't have to like what I do.
Love that.
But I feel a responsibility to myself to be an honest creator, as honest as I can be, as honest as any of us can be when we're also trying to pay the rent, you know.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
There's that.
Yeah.
I'm curious, stepping into the chief, you know, the founder of FANGORIA and managing that as that's awesome. How did that happen? Was it just like, hey?
It was like, hey, believe it or not. And, you know, I'm a firm believer, if you stick around long enough, people will remember you. So
wow,
there was a long road to get to that. I mean, I was writing for Rue Morgue, which was in its infancy in Toronto. It was like Canada's FANGORIA.
Nice.
And I became, you know, columnist, a critic. I co-founded their radio station. I did all that stuff. I was a big part of that. And, you know, you get recognized, start to get a fan base, you start to get fan mail. It's great, you know, rock and roll, right? And then I wanted to be part of FANGORIA. So I would send all my published material to FANGORIA in New York, and they'd send it right back saying, Tony Timpone, you know, it was the editor in chief for 25 years. Would send it back saying, thanks, but no thanks. And I'd be like, okay. A couple months later, I'd send new stuff up there. Here you go. You'd have to mail it, right? No email. And he'd get it. He'd ship. God bless him. He always shipped it back. So you'd get something in the mail, like, let me say, oh, but, you know, that was cinematic in and of itself. Anyways, long story short, this is a crazy story. There's a filmmaker named Uwe Boll, and you're a German guy. And at this time he was in Canada, but German, but he was living in Canada, and he had all these tax credits. And he was making these massive video game horror movies like Alone in the Dark and House of the Dead and Postal and all this stuff based on video game properties. But they were big movies with big stars like Burt Reynolds and Jason Statham. But they were almost universally unwatchable. They're terrible. And so I was having a lot of fun on my radio show, kicking this guy around. And so were a lot of people. He put up a big national call that said, put up or shut up. he used to be a boxer in Germany. He's like a little muscly pit bull. And he said, if you want to get in the ring, if you want to crap on my movies, come fight me. I'll fight you in the freaking boxing ring. And I'm like, I'll do it. So I put my hand up and I got selected and he flew me up to Vancouver. I was only Canadian. I was one of 4 dudes. And there was a huge thing at the Plaza of Nations in Vancouver. It's on YouTube, right? If you want to see it.
Nice.
And I trained with the guy who trained the fighters for Cinderella Man, Russell Crowe. And,
nice.
And I came up with this whole El Santo look I had. And like, I had this like Muhammad Ali pattern that I would, I'll put him to bed for House of the Dead, all this kind of stuff. And it was a big deal. It was a big media thing. And there's articles in every international newspaper. And long story short, I fought the guy. I spat fake blood in his face and I did all this crazy stuff, really theatrical, but I went pretty far. I actually did okay for a couple rounds before his haymaker. Not. So it was a crazy ass stunt. And leading up to it, I was on MTV every week. And so Fangoria had a radio station run by Dee Snider and Debbie Rochon at the time. And they got wind of this. And Debbie was like, oh, this guy's great, man. This guy's insane. We got to have this guy on the show. So I started being on the show every week, giving updates to my battle.
Nice.
And kind of endeared myself to them. And before you know it, I was doing set reports. I did George Romero's Diary of the Dead for Fango.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like doing all kinds of whatever was happening in Toronto, I was doing set reports for. Rumor got mad about that. They said, make a choice. I said, okay, bye. I got a blog and blah, blah, blah. And then one day I just got a call. Really simple as that. They were looking to shake things up. Tony had been there 25 years. Yeah. They said, we like what you do. You have a really weird energy. You have a really interesting point of view. We like your writing. You want to run the company? Of course, I said yes. So I did that. I ran it as editor-in-chief in New York, but I didn't live in New York. I lived in Toronto and ran it for 5 years. So it was insane because that was my Bible as a child, Exactly.
So isn't that interesting how that, like, I could, reading those, and then now you're editor-in-chief. It's like, wow, what a turn of events. But I love that.
But then you can see those patterns, right? Was what I'm saying is that, it's the road less traveled. It's a cliche, but cliches are a cliche for a reason, right? Yeah. So the road less traveled, if you stick on it, it's not going to be easy and you're going to have to suffer and there's going to be problems. But if you believe in it, it will pay off because this planet's not that big. We think it's like massive. It's not. It's actually a small town, and universally speaking. Yeah. And if you stick on the weird path of like, I know everything there is to know about horror movies. I'm a good writer. I can write. I'm published in thousands of articles published. So you put all these things together, and after doing this for a couple of years, and all your competitors and compadres, they fall off the ladder and they go off to a desk job and do something. Yeah. And you're the last man on the road. People are going to go, hey, that's that guy, right? And it ends up sometimes working in your favor just to stay on the play field, And I think that there's probably more to it. I'm not dismissing that. In fact, I think I'm a pretty talented guy. I know I'm good at what I do, but a lot of people are good at what they do. It doesn't mean they're going to be successsul. You got to stick around and be resilient and get used to the word no. Last thing before you ask me another question, and it's, again, I say this to everybody because I'm the teacher comes out where I'm mentoring.
I love it.
But there's that old adage, waiting for your ship to come in. And I always say this to people I know, especially younger people that are very disparaged. There seems to be people with Instagram, with all the social media, people want instant success.
Yeah.
And they're setting themselves up to fail, as you know, right? So I always say, never mind the ship to come in. A lot of people, they spend all this money on one galleon, one ship, and they put that baby out there and it's beautiful and shimmering in diamonds and it goes off over the horizon and they're sitting there waiting. It smashes on the rocks. It's done. It never comes back. Doesn't come back. These guys cry and it's over. They go home, and then you don't send out a ship. You send out a fleet every day, right? Now, half of those ships are going to smash on the reef. They just are. But one will always come back. It may not be the one you want it to come back, but it will come back. And sometimes it's the one you need. It's the one that's actually going to improve your life. You don't know, but you have to send out that fleet of ships every day if you want to, especially in the arts, which is insanely competitive. You have to be resilient, resourceful, and patient.
Ah, so good. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what it is. Patience is key. Yeah. Like you said, it's that instant, I don't know, that microwave success, right? That everybody wants. When it's so funny, I get people who are like, I'll talk to a lot of people and they're like, they'll say, wow, how'd you do that? I was like, dude, I've been doing this since I know I look like I'm 15, but I'm
no, but I know,
years old.
I know about, because obviously we've had our conversations. I know exactly what your road has been and it continues to be. It's just, you've been at this a long time, and well, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
And it has been like this, right? And you're still not probably where you want to be. You're still moving towards that.
Yeah.
You didn't just fall out of space and suddenly you got everything. You busted your ass, right?
Yeah.
And you're still doing it. This podcast is a great
you.
thing to have, because you're connecting with other people that are creating, and you're again mentoring and inspiring. It's so important.
Yeah.
But the social media instance, it really is scientifically is proven that our brains are being rewired to get that reward. That's our reward systems, right? That we put something out, a picture or whatever, or hey, I did this, look at this, and you're collecting the likes, you're collecting the loves, and you're collecting the emojis and everything else, and every one of those just gives you that high. The serotonin blows out. If no one responds, you feel like a fucking failure, right? And it's not a barometer of success at all. It's an illusion, a complete and utter illusion. But so many people, especially younger people, this is just, they live or die. And then to see other people get a great deal of success online too, then they're setting themselves up that if I don't get X amount of likes or success, I'm not an influencer, whatever it is, then I failed. And it's like, oh my God, no.
So true. So true. I'm curious, and do you feel that there is a difference? Now granted, we're in a time where there are women, creating and filmmaking and stuff. And then do you feel like that the industry is opening up more and being inclusive for women as well? Do you think there is that, or do you think there is a little different kind of leverage, like men get a little bit more like that bump?
It's hard for me to answer that correctly, and I'll tell you why. There's an old Groucho Marx line that Woody Allen stole: I don't want to be part of any club that would have me as a member.
Yeah.
I've always been the outsider. It's hard for me to identify with men. It's hard for me to, I'm not setting up for, I'm a non-binary person. That's not what I'm going with this. But it's been hard for me to identify with the groups. I don't identify with the color of my skin. I don't identify with my gender. You know what I mean? I'm just this guy, this person, this individual who loves weird shit. And I want people to know I love this weird shit. So it's been hard for me from a personal level to talk about my experiences connected to other people's experiences that might be pursuing a similar path. I just don't have it. But objectively speaking, of course, that's why I never stuck around and hung with the boys. It's never why I didn't want to hang out with those sniggering fools, because I've seen this in action. I've seen the boys club in action. I've seen the cool kids with the tight pants, the elitists all stick together and stick with people that look like them and sound like them. And while they dismiss everything smaller than them, my favorite movie, one of my favorite movies, is Night of the Hunter. And there's a beautiful line in that Lillian Gish says, it's a hard world for little things. And by that, it's in the context of an owl coming down and killing a rabbit. But in that context, it's true. The powerful absolutely exploit and prey on what they perceive to be somebody beneath them, punching down, weaker. It's anyone with half a brain can see that historically, not just in society, but in nature and everywhere. It's just
absolutely.
But when we have socialized ourselves, it needed to change, and thank God it has. And I feel like it's been changing. I've been noticing change since I was a kid, and things move in waves. It's like neighborhood gentrifying,
Yes.
Feminism becomes post-feminism becomes, civil rights become like it's there, and then it seems to die and go default back to its base line, and then it grows again. But one thing I will say, and I was kind of dismissing social media and the internet, but I'm not, because it saved us all and brought us together now. We're here now.
This is great.
But the world becoming a global village. As a film fan, movies I thought I would never see suddenly are accessible to me at all times. Exactly. But also, you're talking to a guy that ran an international magazine from his basement with his babies on his lap in Oakville, Ontario, outside of Toronto, employing a staff of writers from Australia to Africa to Uganda, all over the place.
Amazing.
And I'll never meet those people, but they're my friends. I love these people. I love them. And that's that's what this world has, the internet has done, is enabled us, if we want to, expose ourselves to a wide variety of human beings and thoughts and cultures, and embrace that and integrate them into our own, so that we're one big, hopefully, ball, because we're all on the same team. We're kind of should be.
Yeah.
Tribalism and division is, to me, the greatest social evil ever.
I agree.
That's why I don't like sports either, but that's a whole thing. It's like, why am I rooting for that logo? But anyways, that's another story. I know that's a terrible thing to say, because
No, it's cool.
But yes, I have seen racism, sexism, all the isms in hideous motion. And I've also seen a lot of hope on the horizon, to see some of those things being the way we view things, and the way the tolerance level for those things starting to diminish, which is why it's so crushing when we see the advent of those things return, like the Hydra getting the head cut off and growing back. You're like, God damn it, why?
Yeah.
How?
Yeah.
But it's all about education. It's all about, John Waters said that you want to get rid of racism, you club the racist on the head and you put him send him to some foreign land, leave him there, come back in a year, he won't be racist anymore. It's all about exposing yourself to new ideas and new people, and realizing that we're all the same. Like, I went to remember teaching in China for like a month. I taught film in China. But I remember, China, it's going to be so weird and exotic. You get off there, highways all look like Toronto. I mean, you know what I mean? People are all the same. What we're doing is the same, maybe a few little twists in the tail as we go. But it's like, same, man. We're all on the same planet. We're all doing the same stuff. We all want love and security and full bellies. And that which unites us is much bigger than that which divides us, I think.
Oh, yeah. So true. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I loved everything you just said.
And I said a lot, and I'm sorry, because
I love this.
Yeah,
this
okay, because I should have said this beforehand. I tend to like jazz. I tend to riff. So.
No. Everything you said, yes, I 100% agree. I do feel like things are changing slowly but surely. But I just feel like there's a lot of work to be done.
A lot of work to be done, and then if that work isn't done, in the sense it never ends, because it's generational.
Yeah.
If we get lazy, if people get lazy and stop being decent human beings, it happens. Traditionally, I can see it historically happening. And then what happens is the next generation comes up all new, and then history just repeats. And it does ad nauseum in different ways. Maybe each time it gets a little bit better. It's kind of evolution and progress. It gets better every time, but it seems to repeat. You always see this when the young come up and want to burn down the house of the old, because they see all the things that the previous generation did to fuck things up. And then the young become old and complacent. And then they end up building the house that the young people come up and go, what have you done, you idiots? And then they burn it all down, and on it goes. But it's all about it's all about complacency, I think. I think we hit a certain age and we just start looking inwards and thinking about ourselves, not the big picture anymore. And then that's when things fall apart, when people become selfish,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's, like you said, it's education and letting them just educate people. And so I feel like you said, we can control whatever that we can creatively, and put that out in the world and hope for the best. So that's what I try to do in my work. And
hope for the best, but by doing what you're doing, and by constantly creating with purpose, and then it doesn't become an anomaly anymore. It just becomes the norm, becomes the standard. So you're working basically to build a kind of a standard in many respects, whether it be a moral standard, a social standard, whatever it is. It's a standard of this is how we are to each other. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And hopefully 200 years from now, this won't be we won't have to have this conversation anymore. Hopefully that's the hope, right? I remember when I was little, it's like, why can't, I remember when I first learned, when you're little, you're ignorant completely. You don't even know racism. You don't even know what that is.
Right.
I just, all my friends were Jamaican. what do I know? I didn't, you don't need, until somebody points it out to you, you're not aware.
Right.
And I remember saying, why can't we all just be beige? Why can't we all just be, I didn't, and that was an honest, observation, thinking about what I knew to be procreation at that point, which was crude. Thinking about if everyone just kind of mated with it, wouldn't we all just be the same? Completely naive and ignorant, right? But when we're young, we are open to those ideas. If something happens along the way, we just get corrupted. It's really fun. Kids aren't born
No.
sexist or racist, or I don't even think kids are born evil. I don't think that's real.
Yeah.
It's learned. You know, all these ills are learned. So it's our job, or to as decent humans, which I like to think I somewhat am, to maybe
you're great.
Maybe help unlearn some of those things, but and also know when to give up, because sometimes you can't. Some people are lost causes, and you got to know when to walk away.
That's so true. That's so true. Speaking of your films or movies, I mean, you've made a lot of films. Like, so what inspires you? Like, say for instance, you have an idea. Okay, I want to write this. Is it like, are you just like, okay, I'm going to put this out and like, I'm just going to see what happens? How do you get it out there to the world? Well,
you see, I've been really, again, coming into the making movies when I was already in publishing. I was already.
Oh, so you know how to.
So I was, my connections, I was very aware of the lay, and I was a publicist at Warner. I knew the lay of the land.
Nice.
And I also when I want to create, I want to create. I don't want to, it's nothing more tedious than sitting around for years and years. And I've done that. I had a couple movies that, Nicolas Winding Refn was producing one, and where everyone, oh yeah, it's going to be the big, and then you're waiting for money for like 2 years, and then it all falls apart. And then you're saying, God damn, that's not for me. I'm not, I'll be dead before it. So I would rather make 10 smaller movies than wait for that big one. I just would, because at the end of the day, when you are gone, those movies will still last. I mean, so as much as the other, you're all going to end up in that Walmart dump bin anyways, right? So who cares? Your movie's going to be the same price as true. Titanic. They're all going to be $5. But with my movies, it was, as far as getting it out there, I was smart in the sense that I went to a distributor that existed, and I said, look, you need content, you need movies. Here's what you give me. You give me this chunk of money, you go away. It's a very small chunk. So I will have complete creative freedom, final cut, everything else. And I will give you something that will be marketable enough that you can call it a horror movie and put it out there, but I'm going to do it my way, and not everyone's going to like it. And just leave it with me, because also you have a built-in marketing machine with me, in the sense that I have many resources, many avenues. I'm good at banging my own drum. And so that's what I've been doing for each and every one of my pictures. They've been financed by other people and distributed with a built-in clear line to distribution. There has never been a point where I've made something and said, now I hope it gets out. It's always been out.
That's awesome.
But the drawback of that is I only own 2 of my films.
I see.
And that was only because the person I made the deal with, the finance, had exhibited them, and then said, look, I'm going to give them back to you. You can have them. They're yours. It was fun. We did this. I made my money back. Now it's a gift. So I own 2 of my movies. The rest I don't own. Wow. So I don't have any control. And one of my movies, Female Werewolf, keeps trading hands and being distributed by new companies with new hideous cover arts. And now Kino Lorber owns it for theatrical distribution, and all these, it's all out there. And I'm like, I don't see a buck out of that. I don't see anything out of that.
Wow.
And I can't control what they do with it. Yeah. That's the other thing,
I've been
so there's drawbacks, but at the end of the day, I did make a series of movies that were completely mine. And that goes for the scores. I wrote all the scores, did all the sound designs, all that stuff,
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. Last question. Loyalty or respect? And there's no wrong answer, but which one would you choose?
Loyalty or respect? Do I have to choose one?
Just one. Which one?
Sometimes they go hand in hand, though, don't they?
Sometimes
you are loyal to that which you respect, right? I think for example, I work primarily with a company these days called Full Moon, which is kind of iconic. I've been around for if you date Charles Band, the founder, he started making movies in 1972 through Empire Pictures, Full Moon, Reanimator, Ghoulies, Puppet, all that stuff. Oh yeah,
amazing.
So I've been part of that company for many years now, and Charlie's legendary. He doesn't pay huge wages and sometimes he's up, sometimes he's down. Read his book. He's got a book out now from HarperCollins, his autobiography. It's unbelievable.
Nice.
He's up, he's down. But the point is that I love him so much. I respect him so much. And I've seen how he struggled. I've also seen the kind way he treats people. And I'm on his team. I'm on his side. So I'm loyal to him. Sometimes you think, well, should I move on? Should I do something else today? I'm like, I'm going to stick around for a bit because I really care about this guy. I really want to see him succeed. His success ends up being my success.
Love it.
So I'm loyal to him. Now, if I found out some hideous, horrible secret, that loyalty would most certainly end. Because I am a brand of one. I'm my own brand at the end of the day. So even just at sheer commercial level, you don't want to be associated with something unsavory. But then on a moral level too, I think at the end of the day, I look at my children, my 3 little boys, and I want them to look at me as someone they want to be. So I want to be as transparent as possible with everything I do, everything I say. I want to be as honest as possible so they can dig through my books and never find anything negative about, well, within reason, negative that they can come back and say, oh, that guy really let me down. I don't want to let them down. So I try to live a virtuous, moderately virtuous life.
I love that.
And so that's a complex way of answering probably what should have been a very simple question. But
I love it.
I don't think there are simple questions, you know.
Never.
I'd be the worst guy on trial because they do, you know, the yes and no answers. I'd be like, no, you're going to get a book every time.
I love it. And thank you. Thank you so much for that. Great answer. Where can people find you on social media to follow you?
Oh, social media. I don't know. I'm on Instagram. I think it's Chris_Alexander_films. I'm on Facebook. I don't know what Chris Alexander. I mean, there's probably a lot of us. I know there's a porn star, but that's not me. And there's also, I'm not on Twitter because I despise Twitter. So
I know, right, same.
I am not on that toxic cesspool. But you can find me at chrisalexanderonline.com. That's kind of a portal to all the stuff I do.
Cool. Thank you again for being on. This was a great conversation. Thank you for having time for us. It was so great.
I always have time for you. So please, anytime you need anything, just knock on my Canadian door.
All right. Definitely.
All right.
Same. And thank you guys for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. Bye, guys.